Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Wait For It podcast, live stream number 4 or 5, one of those two, something along those lines. I am your co-host, Phil Smith, aka Phil the Filipino, and as you see, joining me to my
every time, stop.
This way is my co-host, Mr. Eric Almighty, and Eric. Today we are discussing James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. So initially I guess a soft reboot of 2016 Suicide Squad, which was just a disaster. So Eric, I'm excited to discuss this here. Both of us watched it last night, and as usual, we have not discussed it since then.
Yeah, and we watched this on HBO Max. We were considering going into theaters for this, but things didn't work out. So keep in mind for this review, our experience only on the seat of our couches, or in Phil's case, I don't even know if you even have a couch anymore. I know things have been pretty rough recently, so.
I don't know why we're bringing my personal life in there. Yes, I spent my couch money on the Jurassic Park shoes right there that I'm probably never going to wear because I'm terrified of getting them dirty.
That sounds about right.
All right, guys. Well, if you're new to the Wait For It podcast, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We started doing live streams for movie reviews just to kind of get them out there a little bit quicker than we normally do. So normally, a movie comes out Thursday or Friday, and then a review comes out Monday. And we found that we were getting a little bit behind the ball. So, Eric, for those of them that are brand new to the show, let them know how our movie reviews typically work.
Yeah, so it works the same way on our podcast as it does on YouTube, with just that little dash of you being able to throw in some questions. So definitely feel free to do so during this live stream. We're going to go over likes, dislikes, and then we're going to jump into some of our overall thoughts before we get into, of course, a grade, because you can't have a movie review on the internet without putting a grade out there. So we will give you that. And then in addition to all that, we're going to keep everything pretty spoiler free.
It's
pretty spoiler. So be careful on this spoiler free review. We're going to be keeping it spoiler free, but if you guys are interested in a spoiler discussion, you guys know the drill. Just let us know and we will find the time to get that out. So with that being said, pretty straightforward review here at the Wait For It podcast. And I think we can get things started off.
Yeah, that is correct. So first and foremost, we'll do just a really short synopsis here that is on IMDb. Here's Landon giving you a little shout out here. Much spoilers. Such wow. So great job there, Eric. And Landon, thanks for coming in and checking out the review.
I don't know what it is with us on this one. We've been pretty good, but between your discussing and then me with the spoilers, I don't know.
I know. It should be interesting. Supervillains Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a collection of nutty cons at Belle Reef Prison join the super secret, super shady Task Force X as they are dropped off at the remote enemy-infused island of Corto Maltese. So, Eric, as we mentioned, we very quickly alluded to the 2016 Suicide Squad, which I don't think either one of us enjoyed. It was not very good for various reasons. But there are a few returning characters, most notably, of course, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, as well as Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang. Was there anybody I'm missing? It's just those three that returned, right?
You said Amanda Waller, Jai Courtney, Harley Quinn, and then Rick Flag.
And of course, Rick Flag. That was so super disrespectful of me. Joel Kinnaman returns as Colonel Rick Flag, who was a very, very corny version of himself, the original Suicide Squad. So I'll start where we go likes and dislikes. I'll start right there. Is that I really loved Colonel Rick Flag this time around. It was a lot easier to root for these characters than it was the first time around. I mean, obviously, I hate to bring this up, but there's going to be a lot of comparisons between the 2016 and the 2021 version. That's just inevitable. And, just looking at some of those character models and just it was just so bad, specifically Killer Croc, it was just awful. So I found it very, very, a lot easier to root for these characters than in the first movie. Eric, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Harley Quinn and Rick Flag. I mean, those are two standout characters that got to return and really got to shine more in this movie, which I really, really enjoyed. What I personally liked was the new characters that were introduced. So Idris Elba as Bloodsport really drives the movie. I mean, he's pretty much the main character of the film, and I liked his character. They didn't try to make him this like great hero. He's a person with flaws. I really liked his just abilities. The more you got to see them, we're not going to get into spoilers, but he does have somewhat of a comedic side that you didn't quite see revolving a phobia of his. So really fun stuff. John Cena as Peacemaker, also very, very entertaining. So I had to call out those two individuals in addition to the returning cast because they were just fantastic.
And to kind of talk about Peacemaker and Bloodsport, they have one of the best scenes together in the DCEU ever. Eric, I know you know the one I'm talking about, the one very early on where they're kind of having a little bit of competition, and it is incredible.
It really is amazing. And the action and the fighting in this movie is pretty solid. I thought it was really, really good. They start off the movie kind of with a bang. So, I mean, they really kind of kick things off with the violence. Too. Yeah, it is definitely this. I'm assuming this movie was an R. It had to have been an R. I didn't care to look. I just assumed, and I walked right into a rated R blood fest of a film, and it was I really liked that aspect of it. It made it just kind of stand out.
Yeah, I'm actually with Landon here. Actually, now that I think about it, since Kite Man wasn't in it, it was a terrible movie. I don't know if Kite Man's ever been in the Suicide Squad, but he should be.
I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of reacting to that. So that's
7
where
minutes.
that's where I stand. It took 7 minutes. Yeah, for Kite Man. Although
blame Landon, it's not my fault.
Now listen, I will actually say that I would have been okay with Kite Man being in this movie because there are some deep rogue galleries like characters being used. Like it, I mean, Weasel and the detachable kid
TDK,
like
who's played by Nathan Fillion, which is incredible.
Right? You know, again, it's a lot Ratcatcher like.
Yeah, it's weird character.
Really
Savant,
weird. Like
Michael Rooker as Savant.
Oh my god, yeah. And honestly, like this movie did a good job, just kind of giving us some characters we've never seen before. Where the first one really focused on, and again that comparison, but the first one really focused on characters we knew. I mean, for the most part, we knew almost the entire lineup. That's not the case here. It's like a completely new lineup of characters, starting off with Bloodsport. Like, who the hell is that? Peacemaker. These are all characters that we're not familiar with in the general audience. And again, even me being more on, I mean, I'm not going to say I read comic books or anything, but being more on the comic relevant side and knowing some of that stuff, a lot of these characters, I have no idea who they are.
I mean, we just got to give credit where credit is due when it comes to a ragtag group of unknown characters. Who else are you going to call other than James Gunn? Like, we have to give him a shout out for this, for just knowing how to put all these characters together and giving us, characters that we actually give a shit about, where, again, we didn't really have that in the first one outside of Harley and Deadshot, who, of course, was Will Smith. And yeah, kudos to him, and shout out to Disney as well for throwing James Gunn aside for a brief moment. That way he was able to, that way he was able to do this film. Let's get to one of the questions here, Eric, that we got from social media earlier in the day from a friend of ours here, Kire. What are your overall thoughts? What are your thoughts on the overall plot of this movie versus the first one? So I'll let you take that first, Eric.
So the thing I like about the Suicide Squad is there's not like a really interesting plot, and that's a weird thing to say, but like it's literally just a bunch of characters. You know what the Suicide Squad is. They're a bunch of criminals who get time off their sentences by doing missions. And this mission, just like the last one in a way, just happens to be a very big one. Kind of like trying to save the world in a way, but on a much smaller scale. Like it's not like, again, if it's a really like I'm gonna save the world thing, Superman, Batman, all these real characters are actually gonna show up and do the job. So that gives you the comparison you need. It's just a mission that they have to complete, and there are motives behind that, and I like that side of this, and I like the anti-hero ness of it all. But I don't think that the plots are really too different. I mean, they're obviously different stories, but it's pretty much what you would come to expect from this movie. You're gonna have a bunch of criminals doing some criminal stuff as much as they can while they're trying to save the world.
Yeah, you know, and of course they would never be able to do it because it would cost too much money, but like it's something that you could put into a show and have it be like a weekly episodic thing and just continue to introduce a bunch of unknown villains into this. You know, that's the whole point of the Suicide Squad is they're interchangeable. They are dispensable. You know, that's the whole point of them. And the first one, of course, you know, we learned that they're out there to go and save Amanda Waller, which is just strange. Why would she want them to come save her and not an actual hero? It's just a very strange plot point. The way that this one comes together, again, it's a mission that you wouldn't necessarily call someone like Batman or Superman or Flash to do. You know, you get your hands dirty a little bit. So I think this one definitely worked much, much better. And we got a better movie because of that. So, Eric, I do have a question for you. You know, for those of you guys that don't know, Eric hates Guardians of the Galaxy 2. He absolutely can't stand it. Loves Guardians 1, so still enjoys that movie. Did you have any kind of concern that we were going to get some Guardians of the Galaxy 2 shenanigans in the Suicide Squad because of James Gunn and, you know, your track record with him being kind of 50-50?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was obviously worried. I think for his first outing, I was pretty positive it was going to be more like Guardians of the Galaxy 1. And a lot of people are comparing those films. I personally think the first Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the MCU's best films. This one is better than the original one back in 2016. So, again, you got to kind of give and take. But I think James Gunn is great. He just missed the mark with me for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Like, again, he took established characters, and I thought he just went the wrong direction with them. You already know how I feel about Drax. That's a huge one. The other issue, though, is the jokes don't always land for me in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I don't know if this is a segue to dislikes, but I did feel a little of that here. Like, the jokes are good, and there are a lot of good jokes. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy 2 for me, but there are some misses. And I think that has to do with some of the characters. Again, it's a long movie, but not a lot of the characters were really fleshed out as much as they could have been. Keeping in mind, this is a movie full of just side characters.
Right. They are. I mean, that was almost a spoiler. Never mind. Yeah, there are a lot of characters here that are being delved into. And, you know, the ones that are front and center, I think are really the only ones we really needed to learn more about. If we are getting more Peacemaker, of course, because of the HBO Max television show that John Cena has been filming. And I mean, I am going to go back and watch it again, I think, just because I enjoyed the hell out of it so much. So really just in that moment, I didn't necessarily notice anything specifically that didn't land. Was it like the timing, you think, or do you think it's just the characters or the actors or actresses just not being able to portray like the type of humor they were going for?
I think it was just the type of humor that was being presented, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't for me personally. But I think, again, it has to do partially with like what characters you like. You know, we spend maybe too much time with some characters that aren't interesting or aren't given a lot to do. Like, for example, Polka Dot Man. I thought there was a missed opportunity there. I just thought we kept making this mom joke and we kept referencing it and we kept doing it. And in the final act, it pissed me off a little bit because I was like, this just isn't, I'm not relating with this. Like, I'm not, a little bit more of a backstory with the mommy issues would have maybe helped. Maybe a flashback. I mean, damn, something. But it was like little things like that where those side characters really didn't bring anything to the table. I mean, Idris Elba and again, John Cena playing off each other. Fantastic. Harley Quinn, as always, fantastic. King Shark, just a bunch of dumb fun, right? So there are a lot of hits in this movie, but there are some misses, and I had to call it out because it will affect my score. Not a perfect movie by any means, but again, much better than the original that we got, and I think that's a win in itself.
Yeah, speaking of the original, Landon also saying, I, for one, just surprised they had technology that allowed us to actually see John Cena. So yeah, good job, DC. Really, really, really impressive. Everybody at Warner Brothers there working really, really hard. Let's get to another question that we had from social media, Eric. This is another one from Kire. Who was your favorite character and why was it Peacemaker?
Honestly, I enjoyed the hell out of Harley Quinn again. Again, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is just, again, fantastic. So that's an easy one. I actually really like Idris Elba as Bloodsport. Again, as the main character, you kind of have to buy into that character. So that's another obvious one that I would probably have to call out. That's the thing. I don't think there were any other real characters that I cared for. Peacemaker was awesome too. Like, that's like a real close second to Idris Elba, but I'm gonna have to go with Bloodsport on this one. I liked his character arc. I liked his demeanor. I liked the comedic and the action elements to that character. And just, again, really, really cool to kind of see someone front and center that wouldn't normally get some shine. And I feel like this really related to Will Smith's Deadshot, which, again, loved that character in the first one. I would love to see those two actors do something together in this DC universe with those characters. I don't know if it'll ever happen because I guess the first one's not really canon. This is kind of a reboot. So, again, I'm just putting that out there as a feeler, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, Eric, I'm interested to see what you think after I go, but I think this is Margot Robbie's best go as Harley Quinn. It's fantastic, and I really enjoyed the Birds of Prey movie. I know we haven't really talked about it a lot, and I think she's just slowly been perfecting this character, and I think this is, again, her best go around. I'm going to go, and yes, definitely Idris Elba is 100% a stand. He's fantastic as well. I'm going to go with Daniela Melchior, who's Ratcatcher too. I enjoyed that character. I enjoyed Sebastian, the rat as well. And I really think that she was kind of the heart of the film. Between her and Margot, I really think they were kind of like the heart of the team, really kind of like their moral compass. And that's why I'm going to go with Ratcatcher too.
I should have brought up Sebastian. So Sebastian is definitely the winner in this movie. Me and my wife loved watching it. The second we saw him, we were like, please don't let anything happen to this little rat.
You take care of Sebastian.
we got attached very quickly, and this is not a movie to get attached to characters. That is something that I did like.
No, it is not.
They were not afraid to knock these characters out off the lineup. I mean, outside of your main character, Harley Quinn, and then obviously, Peacemaker's getting a TV show. Maybe it's a prequel, who knows? So outside of those two characters, the main character and Harley Quinn, everyone else is up for grabs as far as deaths, and they really went all out on that part.
Well, what other missed opportunities did you have here, Eric? I know we definitely talked about the villain, which is just I think that's just a superhero movie thing now. I don't think we can really call it a Marvel or a DC thing.
No, and I mean, if you've seen it in the trailers, but it's just a big monster. So that's all I'll leave it as. I won't go into more just in case you are trailer free, but a big monster. And in the first one, you had Enchantress. It wasn't really interesting. A lot of CGI. We kind of fell into that trap with this movie. And there are two things. So the villain wasn't the best. There are two things this movie did that I did not like. One of them was flashbacks to kind of show us like something ahead of time, and then we had to go backwards. It did it more than once. I didn't enjoy that because I didn't feel like that enhanced the moment we were leaving from. If anything, I felt like we were taking several steps back. So in the beginning, we start off on a beach, very intense scene, a lot of stuff happening, and then we just take a step back. And when we get back to that beach, I don't think we enhanced it in any way because of the flashback. Same thing happens at the end of the movie. When we're in that final boss fight, we get to an intense moment, and then we just backtrack. In addition to that, for some reason, we as the audience are stupid, so we have to read the words in like toilet, on a toilet with soap, written into the ground. Meanwhile, now we're doing this. I didn't like it. My wife hated it. It made me enjoy it actually for a little bit, but thinking back on it, I really didn't like that addition to the movie. Phil, I'm curious if I'm nitpicking, but these are things that they didn't work for me. Like it bothered me.
No, you're nitpicking.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. I didn't like it. The
It didn't
flashback
bother me.
specifically is a criticism. The
Yeah.
nitpicking for sure is the writing. Again, I just didn't like it. Again, saving this person in flames. Like, I didn't need that.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me too much. Again, this is a film that doesn't have a traditional villain. And again, we won't spoil anything here in case you've been avoiding trailers altogether. But yeah, it's just something. I'll say this: it's much better than the Enchantress as far as that whole final fight, and you get the typical superhero sky beam and all of that stuff that we've grown accustomed to when it comes to these superhero films. But yeah, no, nothing great, nothing to write home about. But honestly, I enjoyed so much else of what was going on. It didn't really bother me or take away from it really too much at all, because I just had so fun watching the movie. And Eric, you did mention that we saw this at home. We watched it just on HBO Max. But I mean, if the opportunity presented itself, I would certainly go see this in theaters. But because I bet it's probably a pretty good movie going experience.
There are several things that happen in the movie, quotes, jokes, several things that make this rewatchable. And I can definitely say that about this movie, and I can't say that about the last one. And the biggest reason that you're going to come see this is probably because you didn't like the last one. Because again, they make it very clear from the beginning, this is a different film. This is not going to go that same route. And it is a different film, and it's a better film. But I just think that, again, with this movie, the rewatchability factor is really going to help it just make its case as to why it was made and how successful it is.
All right, Eric, we're going to wrap up here shortly. Unless anybody else in the audience has any questions, now's the time to throw them out. Otherwise, we will get to our grades. Is there anything else, either positive, negative, that you wanted to point out before we get into those final scores?
No, I don't think I can bounce back from the writing on the wall thing, like the writing in the air. Again, it just dumb. I didn't like it. But after that was my final nitpick to end honest criticism of positive things that happened and a couple negatives. And this movie definitely had a couple negatives. So Phil, again, unless we have any questions, I think we could probably jump into overall, our final thoughts, I guess I should say, final overall thoughts and our grade.
Yeah, let's do that here. First and foremost, I will get to the Rotten Tomatoes. Currently 92% fresh, or certified fresh over on Rotten Tomatoes, and then 86% audience score. Oh, hold on. We got one more question here before we get to our final thoughts, and it's coming here again from Landon. Was this villain something that you feel could have been improved upon, or was it done the best it could have been? So the villain is just it's a tragic villain, is what I will say. I mean, there's technically two villains, but well, I guess technically three, I guess, kind of, if you really look at it that way, Eric. There's a pair of villains, there's a team, there's, one that's attached to the main villain, I guess. So it definitely, I mean, I think
I'm going to assume that it's just me here and you guys are seeing the face that I'm seeing. The joys, the joys of live streaming. Oh, poor Phil. Let's savor in this moment as we as we enjoy this. Cool. Well, it's just me now. Well, then I guess I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys my final thoughts and my overall score, and we will see how this goes. Sorry about the hand. With the villain, I would just add onto this. It's just not very well done. In the sense that it's just a big monster. Again, it's a tragic villain in the sense of how everything kind of goes down, but to Phil's point, there were a lot of things that happened in this movie that just didn't make a lot of sense. There are like a connection of villains that, oh, and he's back, there are a connection of villains that just kind of lead up into the conflict, and it just doesn't quite work. So, yeah, I just bullshitted my way through that until Phil got here.
I didn't know if you got kicked out too, or if it was just me. So
luckily, I'm one of the viewers because I keep the live stream up, and I'm like, no, my eyes are moving. Oh, Phil's not moving. I was like, all right, well, I guess it's just me. So thank you, Landon, for giving me that heads up that your question killed Phil.
Yeah, I had no idea. I like all of a sudden my screen just went black. The beauties of live broadcasting, right? That's what we are experiencing here now. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I guess we'll get into our final thoughts before we wrap up here. So again, 92% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 86% audience score, which I think will probably be reflective of where the two of us land. I didn't necessarily write too much down as far as this review goes. You know, this version of the Suicide Squad now exists to pretty much completely erase the sins of the first film in 2016. Again, let's give a shout out to Disney for temporarily tossing James Gunn out on his ass so that he was able to direct this film. This version of the Suicide Squad does less telling you why these characters are badass and just jumps right into showing you why they're so cool. I found myself openly rooting for specific characters and like genuinely being heartbroken when some of them inevitably don't make it to the end of the film. Mentioned this is Margot Robbie's best turn as Harley Davis, as Amanda Waller continues to be one of the DCEU's best villains. She is absolutely fantastic. And honestly, there's a character in here for everybody. You're going to find reasons to connect to any one of these characters, and they have a lot more heart than they did in the very first film as well. I really appreciated that. For the most part, all of the humor hits, depending on whether or not how you feel. I feel like the pacing worked pretty well. Eric seemed to be a little bit iffy on that, but there were definitely things, of course, that you could pick apart as far as this movie. The biggest thing that I'm taking away from this to know that I enjoyed myself is I'm going to watch it again, probably very, very soon, because it was a whole lot of fun. I give the Suicide Squad 2021 a 9 out of 10 because I really, really enjoyed it. And get out in theaters or on HBO Max, as far as my opinion goes.
Wow, 9 out of 10. I saw some sites giving this movie a 10 out of 10. I do not think this movie is a masterpiece by any means, but what it does do is it does improve upon almost everything that the original Suicide Squad movie did, and that alone warrants the reason that this movie was made. Very soft reboot is what it is. It is in no way a sequel, and deservingly so, it is one of DC's most fun movies, which I think has been a criticism that genre has had, the DC genre. So with that being said, though, as much as I enjoyed this movie, there are several flaws that come into it. Again, I think that if you love James Gunn, this is right down your alley. I think I really am in that 50-50 zone where some things that he does really work for me as a viewer. Some things, not so much. The first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I would probably give that a 9, maybe 9.5. The second one, probably a 1. And I know that's going to make Phil mad. But this movie is much closer to the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie as far as it being original, unique, and at the end of the day, fun. So I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. That could probably be swayed to an 8.5 out of 10. So you've probably got me somewhere in there, but that's my final score. A fun movie to go watch, and definitely worth watching in theaters. As Phil mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up going back to see it.
Really a 1 out of 10 when Iron Man 3 exists, and you're gonna give Guardians
and Iron Man 3
2.
gets like a 1.25.
Okay, well, at least you're consistent there. But yeah, I just again enjoyed it so much. As Eric mentioned, I'm definitely going to see it again. One thing we didn't give a shout out to, James Gunn nails it again as far as the music goes. So much better than the score in the first movie. The music in the first movie was so on the nose, like, oh, here comes the bad guy, here's Amanda Waller, here comes the Joker, all that crap. Like, much better in this one, and it was an absolute blast. Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it again, whether it be in theaters or at home. And I hope you guys enjoyed this review. So even if you didn't join us live, hopefully you enjoyed watching it back and listening to our thoughts. We really, really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody that sent in questions between Landon and Kire. I combined Landon and Kire into one name.
Don't do that. We can't afford to be merging fans. We do not have that flexibility.
We really don't. But that's it for this episode, this live stream of the Wait For It podcast here. If you guys enjoyed this, I promise you'll enjoy the rest of our content. There is something here for everybody. Most recently, we did a couple of really fun episodes where Eric took the reins for Netflix and Phil. That was a really fun episode. And if you're watching this live on Monday, I will be covering an episode of Why You Should Watch Odd Taxi in less than 10 minutes. And let's just say that's something you definitely want to check out here in the next couple of days. Eric has no idea what is coming. He brought this upon himself.
Yeah, I had a fun cold open that I'm very proud of on my Netflix and Phil episode covering Terra Nova, actually. And then there's other anime content where we covered My Hero Academia. I'm actually doing with Landon there in the comments, Intro to Anime. And then we have several other series that you may like. The Game Room Where It Happens, tirades and hot takes, and What Did I Miss? So again, something here for everyone. But we greatly appreciate each and every one of you that are either watching this live, sent in questions, or are listening to this and watching this after the fact. Go check out our podcast. Don't pay attention to Phil. And my name is Mr. Eric Almighty. Shit. That is my co-host, Phil the Filipino. And don't forget, we release new episodes every Monday and Wednesday on our podcast with occasional live streams here on YouTube. And all you have to do is wait for it.
Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.